How you doing, guys? Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com back again. I have to apologize because my hair is all jacked up. You guys deserve better than this. Look at this. I just was laying around well, not laying around, but I was just doing chores around the house and stuff today. So I haven't had taken a shower yet, and I was sleeping last night. And this part behaved, but this just won't. Sometimes happens, you know. It's not easy being beautiful. Maybe I'll just smash it down. There we go. With the glass. That's even worse. There you go. All right. So you get a little bit of a see behind the peek at the ugly behind the scenes. This doesn't just happen. You gotta do it. Takes a lot of work. So I see a few people rolling in. Let you guys know. I'm gonna do it at the end. So you guys can just roll in and watch. If you're watching later, you don't have to sit through the drawing. But for the Patreon people, I have another one of these mossy oak to give away knives. Which is like pretty good size and shape for outdoor stuff. Really heavy, beefy chunk of steel in these, and a pretty useful kydex sheath. And then I also have this Work Pro hammer multi-tool to give away to the Patreon people. I'm not convinced of the overall utility of the hammer multi-tool, but it is brand new. I think it's obviously not it's a little goofy for an EDC. It's too big and heavy and too random, but not a necessarily bad thing to have in some kind of toolbox or car kit potentially, and it is brand new, so you get to play around with the Work Pro hammer multi-tool. Someone on Patreon will win that. So those are the two Patreon giveaways that I'll do at the end of my normal live stream. Those of you who are, and one of you guys actually upped your slightly contribution, so I added the additional entries on there, so you will have additional chances. So how's everybody doing today? Seems like it's working. The not a whole heck of a lot has gone on in the last few or last week since the last live stream. Yeah, I feel like people, I mean, getting into the holidays and everything, we've definitely seen a lull in news. I don't think like the fighting has lulled in Ukraine, but in terms of the way it's being presented to us Western audiences, I do feel like there is a lull in terms of people kind of just waiting to see what happens with this um, peace deal and everything. So hopefully no escalations there that will increase any risks for us here. Cambodia and Thailand are fighting again. That's not too new, right? They seem to have little spats pop up every once in a while, but I haven't heard of anything specifically happening there within the last few days. The big things for me, as I've been talking about, is the economic stuff. We are continually seeing cracks form in the economic markets, and the Japan bond rates continue to rise, which is going to cause some weird problems. And I do think the Fed is going to act soon. They have a meeting coming up, right? Fed meeting is in December. I don't remember, is it the 16th? Where they're expected to December Fed meeting. Everyone thinks they're going to cut rates by 25 basis points or a quarter of a percent. Seems to be priced in. Um, the bond market suggests that the odds of a December Fed interest rate cut stand roughly at 87%. Um, so if they do anything other than a 25 basis point rate cut there, we could see some people freak out either direction, whether they don't cut or if they cut more than that, that sort of thing. But even gold and silver prices, we had that huge spike. Like, man, I talked last time about how that order I put in, like in the middle of the night, right after all the weird stuff was happening with the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, where they do a lot of the comics um, operations, and their servers went down. Only for them though, not for anyone else who uses that company. Sure. Um, I put that order in like in the middle of the night. that was like $50, I think. I think silver was at like 50 bucks, 51, and now it's like 58 or something. It went up huge. What day was that? I'm gonna actually try to find the real price. Is silver going to hit 60? Of course. It's just a question of when. I mean, it's like almost there now. We got up to like $59. I think it'll hit, maybe not by the end of the year. It depends. Like I said, people with the holidays and everything else, it depends on what else is going on in the world. We've seen it kind of like stop for a minute. But I mean, it rocketed up those dollars from like 50 to 58. Let me see if I can pull up the chart here. Yeah, on November 10th, it was $50. On November 24th, it was almost 51. So from November 24th to December 2nd, it went up $7 or like 15%. So definitely will keep going. Year to date, it's doubled. Um, yeah, it's going to continue to happen. I mean, like, are there going to be pullbacks to whatever? Sure, but those are only buying opportunities because the main reasons why it's going up now haven't changed, are not going to change anytime soon. And if they do change, it probably won't be for the good, for the betterment of our economy and financial system. Any changes that we will see will be dramatically bad, I'm guessing, or even something like shifting to a new system, which would be done ostensibly for the benefit of the people in the monetary system, would not be good. You know what I mean? It would be out of desperation and necessity. So gold and silver and real assets will be what benefits. Like I said, it's all going to come down to um, acres and ounces. It's all that's going to matter. I'm becoming more and more convinced that like agricultural land is probably like the ultimate place you want to be in terms of like stuff you want to own. Now, you don't want to put 100% of your wealth in land simply because it's a lot less liquid, it's not portable, that sort of thing. So the precious metals, like my awesome little Jaeger skull man here, is still the ultimate, I think, especially for smaller amounts of money. And by smaller, I mean anything under the few hundred thousand. Because land, you can't just go buy $1,000 worth of agricultural land, or they might have some sort of like share ownership type thing, but it's just not feasible for most of us to go out and put all our extra money into farmland. I wish I could. Um, for multiple reasons, not just because I think it's going to go up in real value and nominal value, but also because of how much they're corrupting the entire system of food production and agriculture. I want access to be able to produce some of that stuff for myself, like growing or raising sheep, growing some sort of any sort of food, really. Not even for commercial purposes, but just to be able to get outside of that, like that crazy stuff that they're making. I think it's in Holland or the Netherlands and other parts of Europe. This weird like Bovaer, some disgusting, horrific chemical that has not been tested at all that they're making the cows ingest to like prevent them from creating the methane, which is like that is the process by which they digest their food. That's why this happens. And so you're trying to interrupt that process for these stupid environmental reasons. Meanwhile, China, Indonesia and all the Vietnam, all these other countries are like blasting smog into the atmosphere, and then we're making ourselves less healthy for things that don't even matter. Like a ruminant, like a cow or something like that, farting in a field is like the most natural thing ever. So to try to change that is what is unnatural. There used to be herds of millions of bison allegedly in the United States and things like all that, anything that a chemicals that carbon or whatever you want to say that a cow or a bison or a sheep or anything like that releases was already in some other form, already existing in some other form. It wasn't unnaturally produced. It wasn't done through like mining or weird synthetic processes. And all this other stuff. So there's no way the Earth can be destroyed by there being like a bunch of cows out there farting. It's just impossible. And it's really like discivilizational for them to try to attack the food supply in this way. And I understand why it's so ridiculous and so destructive that I understand why some people think that it is being done on purpose because it's like is it Bill Holter says too stupid to be stupid, or is that no, not Bill Holter, Miles Franklin, man. Um, but I honestly think it's just a combination of all these ridiculous ideologies converging and fighting it out, which leads us to these things. And to be fair, like some of these people are doing these things for ulterior motives. They don't actually care about the environment. But I also don't buy that they're like, evil reptilians trying to purposely poison the entire food supply and terraform the planet or whatever. But it's possible they're doing that crazy of a job of all this stuff with, you know, poisoning everybody in all sorts of ways that it, you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world, I'll tell you that much. What do you think dinosaurs did back in the day? Yeah, they were farting all over the place. Didn't you see that massive pile of poo in Jurassic Park? His science right there, science. Yeah, silver is going to hit $60. So speaking of silver and gold prices declining, we have our buddy Henry Zeberg, who is interesting, and I talked before about him in a debate with the market sniper. Um, Talking about gold and silver prices going down. And I absolutely think that gold and silver prices could go down initially in any sort of wider market sell-off because of retail people um pan combination of panicking, not understanding the situation, and needing the liquidity, and them being some of the most liquid assets that would remain if things like all these weird financial instruments nobody wants anymore, and you have this one thing that's going down, but not quite as much as everything else, or maybe not going down at all at first, but people have to sell it off to cover margin calls to try to get some kind of liquidity back, that sort of thing. So, and we can see that. I mean, you can look at the price charts. If you go to like AppMex, they have the gold and silver price, and you can look back at the metals in previous market sell-offs and see what happens. And the thing that was interesting to me looking at that was that it didn't happen in all of them. And it didn't happen the same with gold and silver. So gold, let's go to the gold one. I might try to share this chart with you guys. We'll go to the all. And now if you look at, let me see here if I can share this screen with you guys. I don't have any weird tabs up there. Embarrassing tabs, do I? Okay. Um, if you look here, we have 2001, around the 2001 time .com bubble. Gold can't even tell where that dip was. Nothing. Absolutely no, almost no noticeable effect there. Went from around, what do we got here? In late 1990, 98, it's 295. In 2000, 273. 2001 goes down to 268, 270 goes, yeah, so nothing. You go up to 2008 financial crisis here, just like late 2008. We go from a peak of 968. Let me get my glasses on here. In August, sorry, peak was around April, somewhere in that time frame. February, March, April of 2008, gold peaked at like 950, 960. And then it bottomed in November at 750. So it had a decent decline, 950 to 750. So, 25%, that's pretty solid. Not some complete crash like you'd see in the financial stocks, but that went down with everything else. Like gold went down 25% there. And you pull it forward to it went down from 2012 to 2013 quite a bit with when that wasn't really a corresponding overall like major stock market crash like in '08, and then obviously in where's the 2020 blip there, find that right there, it's very brief, one day. Have to go back. Let me go back 5 years. See if we can see that one. Yeah, so right there in 2020, March 2020, it dipped with everything else from 1600 down to 1400. And let's go to silver now. We'll go to all. So silver, weirder chart, same thing in around 2001 dot-com burst. Man, $4 or $5. Can you imagine that? Um, Not much of anything. So nothing, none of the metals were really messed with in 2000, and that, which is interesting to me. Then in 2008, silver got hammered, way worse than gold. Silver went from $19 in February to $9. It went fully cut in half in that .com. Then it had its own little run up that we know about in the 2010, 2011 time frame. And then in 2020, in the COVID spike, it went from 17. Let's go back 5 years so I can get a better picture of that. Down to 12. So full like third there. So silver seems to be much more affected by these stock market dips than gold. And as you can see with both of those, though, gold and silver, neither of them lasted very long. And the dips weren't huge. So if you're kind of waiting for it to buy in, you probably will get a shot. At least with silver, you probably definitely get a dip. Um, but gold, you'll probably get a little bit of one, but it won't last long. You're probably not going to know what the bottom is. So I definitely wouldn't wait. It's not financial advice, but I personally can't see myself waiting for a dip because, like I said, if you're only getting a 30% dip only, or in this case, I mean, those are huge dips, obviously, but like a 25% dip, let's say, like we saw in gold in 2008, or silver got 50%. That would be nice. Silver dropped back down to, $30 or whatever. But if gold goes down to 38, what would 25% be? What's it at right now? 42. So we're looking at like just about $1,000, 1,050 for 25%. So it would go down to like, yeah, just over $3,000, 3,150, something like that. I would jump all over that. And I think Henrik Zyberg, like we're talking about, he said it's going to go down, or his prediction was it was going to go down to like $800. I don't see why that would happen. Um, because you have a competing force now, whereas like the global markets for gold, everyone trying to buy it up now versus already. I think you have more people waiting in the wings than you would. Um, no one cared about gold and silver back then. So to the extent that people still don't realize that what's going on. I think they're more aware of it now, or gold and silver wouldn't be going up like this to begin with. So or at least there are more people aware of it, or the people that are aware, like you and I, are definitely more hyper focused on trying to put as much money into gold and silver as possible. So, I don't see it, getting cut in half. And if it is, it will be very, very brief. Like we're probably talking days, maybe even like hours. Um, because I mean, if we saw silver drop down below $1,000, I would be mortgaging my genitals to go buy some. I'd be pawning and selling everything that wasn't nailed down to go buy gold and silver at that point. I mean, I was like, you've seen me screaming on here for years when silver was, 18, 20, 25, 30. Speaking of which, I want somebody who can go back through all my live streams to get the clips of every time I've talked about like gold and silver. You don't even have to do anything with the clips. If you could, if I can find someone willing to timestamp mentions of it from like the past couple of years, doesn't have to be every single one too. I'd be willing to give someone like an ounce or two of silver or a survival fishing kit or something. So if you're interested in doing that, email me and we can figure out exactly what. Because it'll probably take a few hours of watching some random videos, maybe get $100 out of it. Because I want to put a compilation together and I can't be bothered to do that. So just email me rulethewasteland@gmail.com if that's something you're interested in. If you got some free time and want to make a couple bucks or some free gear, and we can figure out something. But do you get much into other metals? Says Chris Lessner. I don't. We have a little bit of platinum. I think platinum and palladium are fantastic. value, especially platinum right now. And interestingly enough, we were just talking about this. If you go to the platinum chart, platinum is like most affected, I think, by these crashes. So in the January 20, or not January, in the COVID collapse of the 20s, platinum went from $1,000 down to 600. So not quite as much as silver actually, but still a huge jump there. And then platinum in 2008, platinum was like obliterated, went from 2019 down to $800. So platinum was like crushed. So that might be a better thing to look for. And platinum was actually the only one of the major metals that did see a dip in the 2001 like .com kind of. It went from a peak of around 600 in early 2001 and then it dropped to 420. So a good 30% crap, but it was totally hammered in '08 more so than the others, which was interesting to me. Very interesting. Um, Palladium is right there with, and Palladium was the most affected in two. It was the only one that really had a big drop in 2001. Platinum, palladium, gold, and silver really didn't, which is interesting to me. I don't know exactly what to make of that. Um, but so if you do see a spike, it might be time to jump into those, but I wouldn't wait for gold and silver. I think it's just too important to have them. We're seeing the value be erased from the currency too fast. And like I said, if we you might get a 30% dip, but if that dip happens when silver's already at 80 or 90 or 75, 80, 90 or whatever, how long have you been waiting to get in? And then it just comes back to $60 or back to, $50 or whatever. I think it's just too important. um, there's definitely nothing wrong with having some dry powder, but yeah, I'm personally not comfortable waiting. That's for sure. Gregory Thompson says, "What's the best way to use silver if things go bad? Coin dealers, pawn shops, keep for barter, or some other way? I'm thinking physical silver, silver eagles, or maples. I mean, that really depends. You'll see a ton of disagreement about that. I've made it clear on this channel that I really don't foresee a situation where silver dimes become the primary barter, or a currency system across the country or even localized. It just doesn't make any sense. There's not enough of it. There's not enough people who even recognize that that would work. And if things got that bad, there aren't enough people who would be willing to take or able to take anything other than the physical things that they need. Um, so even someone who had like a farm, and like even if I had, back to where I have all my chickens and stuff, and even someone like me who recognizes the utility of gold and silver in a lot of situations, if we have like a real Mad Max type breakdown, like stuff like Bill Holter was talking about, I wouldn't give up food for gold and silver. You know what I mean? Um, so I really just don't see it getting that bad. And if it doesn't get quite that bad, then you're not going to be bartering for it. There'll be some level of commerce happening, some level of, you know, transportation and communication to where you could realize what other countries are still taking gold and silver, what uh, refineries and things like that. If there's any kind of manufacturing happening, people will still, so there'll still be some sort of people somewhere that will be willing to buy and sell for whatever the new currency is. Now, I do think there'll be times, brief periods of time, where if they're switching to a new system or if the, you know, internet or payment processors go down to where people might take gold and silver or cash and things like that too. So I think it'd be useful for that. But in terms of how to use it, I think if it gets bad enough that you can't go somewhere and sell gold and silver for the physical currency that's being used at the time, whether that's a dollar still or something that they switch to, then I think you're just holding on to it to maintain your purchasing power until after whatever craziness we get through. You know what I mean? So if you're in a situation like a Katrina or something, a localized disaster, you're not going to be using gold and silver. You're going to be using your supplies, your power generation, your food that you have stored, and then your gold and silver just protects your money for after that. And if you're in a economic collapse, it's not going to be grid down, at least not across the entire country simultaneously, hopefully. That doesn't normally a result of economic collapse, it has to have some other calamity happen as well. So people somewhere will be buying and selling things. There'll still be markets happening. They'll just be thrown into disarray in terms of price discovery and what things people want anymore because a lot of these things just will be totally not valued anymore because they're actually worthless. They have no real value, and some things will be incredibly rare and people will be, bidding those up and fighting over them and everything. But yeah, I don't foresee the barter. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be ready to take advantage of that situation if it ever does happen. And like I said in the previous one or two videos where I was talking about, I think, and that's why I think Bill Holter was wrong about there being a situation where a 100 ounce bar would be worthless or useless, I think is the actual term he used, which is just nonsense to me. I don't see, because if you're talking about a situation where a 100 ounce silver bar is useless, then a silver dime is going to be almost as useless in that situation because it just means that people don't want silver. Now, you can definitely make the argument that there'll be situations where you don't want to have to transact in 100 ounce increments, and that's fine. Um, Go buy the silver dimes, and that's just what I bought was a junk silver. It's a crazy low premium right now. Any situation that you could use a silver 100 ounce bar in, you could also use the junk silver, and the reverse is not true. So if there is an advantage to having the smaller increments, especially when you're not even paying more for it. In the past, the advantage of buying the big bars was you would be paying a little less, but when you don't even have that advantage, you might as well just not mess with it. But you don't have to worry, if anyone is taking silver dimes, it's because there's a way for them to go get something else with it. And if that were the case, then 1,000 or 100 or 1,000 ounces of silver in a big lump is going to be valued at roughly 100 times more. There will be a little bit of a loss probably because of, like I said, your universes of buyers, as one of my commenters pointed out, does shrink in the same way that if you have um, $100 bill or 100 singles, you're going to be able to make a lot more transactions than or different kinds of transactions because you wouldn't necessarily be able to make change with a 100 ounce bar. But there's still no situation where someone is willing to take singles and is not willing to accept $100 bill. You know what I mean? That the $100 bill is not valued at roughly 100 times the singles, just because some vendors can't make change. You know what I mean? Like someone might be give you $98 or $95 because they're like, I can't use this anywhere unless I'm buying $100 worth of stuff. But they're not going to, no, use $100, useless. I only need $101. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But so for me, the way that I would use it if things go bad is my vision right now of most likely outcome of things going bad is widespread economic turmoil, the currency continued to lose value. Um, and so I would use it. When it came time to buy something that I needed, I would sell the gold and silver to either any of these things you mentioned, coin dealers, pawn shops, refineries, the online dealers, anything that was still around. And I do think many of them will still be around because I don't think the grid will be down all over the country all at once. And then I will take that money and immediately spend it on what I needed. And in some situations, you may be able to work out if the currency is really having issues like Weimar style or some of these countries like Venezuela. You'll probably find plenty of people who you don't need to do the switch first, that you can just go and say, hey, I've got my 100 ounce bar, or my 100 ounces of individual ounces, and say, this is worth this much. I'm going to buy it for that. Can we just do directly? I'll give you silver or gold and you give me whatever it is. And that's probably easy to set up. But I don't consider that bartering in the sense that people are thinking about, where it's like barter town and the grid is down and people are buying and selling in gold, silver, dimes. Just there is the main complaint for me is there simply isn't enough gold, silver, dimes out there to take up all the economic activity. Even if the country's population was cut in by 90%, there's not enough well distributed junk silver to make that happen. AOTTP was heavy into silver in his videos, but now seems like he's gone when it comes to YouTube videos. AOTTP. Why am I not having a You have to remind me who that was. AOTTP. AOTTP. Evening, Tom. I made a silver purchase today, Steve says. Probably my last. We'll see. We'll never see sub 50 silver again. Never. It certainly doesn't seem likely, but like I said, if we really do get, like we had in 2008, um, 25 to 40% declines in the metal when everything does initially start, falling apart in the markets, then it depends on what the price is at the time. If it's up at $100 and we get a 25 to 40% decline, you're still not going to see 50. But if it's around where it is now and we see a 25 to 40% decline, you could see it again. But like I said, is it worth waiting for that to maybe get it a little bit cheaper than it is now? We're not going to see $25 silver, $10 silver. That's for damn sure. Um, so what's the point of trying to wait for that, especially when we can see even like you might get a few months of those, and that's I think it'd probably be shorter than that. But just going by the past, maybe we get a few months of these decreased prices. But I think right now there's a lot more of us worldwide who realize what's going on and will be waiting, and the central banks and other entities that realize that would be just all over it if the prices drop that significantly. Steve says, people don't understand regional differences. Most of my older neighbors have some silver. We barter already when possible. In Appalachia, we'll go straight to silver when digital hits. Yeah, maybe some of you, but like if you go down to the a store or something, is the gas station going to take it? Is the grocery store going to take it? Like you might have a few neighbors that can do it, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with it, but I think counting on it being like the primary method by which most people are transacting, I don't think will ever happen. The economy is horrible. I'm sure it will keep going up. The gold and silver prices, yeah, because the currencies, yeah, because the economy is horrible, the currency is going down and they're continuing to print, and they're most likely going to increase that dramatically coming up. We have bond yields starting to go up. They're gonna have to monetize a bunch of the debt probably directly at some point. Um, they're gonna start loosening the monetary policy like Trump wants and start lowering rates and everything when they should be raising rates. It really doesn't matter. You need sound money. It doesn't matter if they raise rates or lower rates, something breaks. It's either the currency or the markets. They can't really have nothing break. We backed ourselves into a corner. We have the wolf by the ears, as the saying goes, and something breaks either way. So that's all there is to it. Speaking of things burning up, I was experimenting with to get into some actual survival and preparedness stuff. I was adjusting some of my fire kits that I had for camping and whatnot, and I was trying to experiment with. In the past, I'd had some of those magic birthday candles that like don't go out because one of the primary, and I think a lot of people overlook this, things that I have to include in my fire kits are candles, a small candle. I have everything from these micro birthday candles, which you can see in my little fire kit here, which I have. This is only part of it. I have some of these like cotton makeup pillows, which you can rip open and have fluff inside of them. I got a Fresnel lens, basically a magnifying glass that I've cut to shape to fit in my little tin. Some more of these little pads for tinder. And then a lot of these micro birthday candles. Now, what I haven't done, what we need, what should actually do is, and I like these too. If you guys haven't checked out these electric lighters, if you have some method of like one of those mini solar panels or something like that, these are fantastic. Where are we going here? They're like a plasma arc lighter kind of thing. Totally windproof, and you can hold them upside down without the flame coming and catching your thumb and everything. Um, and so what you should do is any candle in your kit, you should let the wick burn a little bit because once it's already been burnt, it lights a lot quicker. And so the reason I keep candles in there is because if you are starting fires from something like a spark, like a ferro rod, especially from something like a bow drill, um, and where you get a little ember, one of the most awkward and easiest to mess up parts is transferring because you can't really have the fire already built and then light the tinder with the spark, or especially if you're doing a bow drill and you get that little ember, you have to like transmit it to where the your little fire is built, to actually light the kindling. So one of the best ways to do that is to not do it, is to, as soon as you get the flame with your pile of tinder from either from your spark or from your ember from your bow drill, you just light a candle. You have the candle ready to go, and as soon as the flame hits, and then you can hold that into your pre-built fire. And I have bigger candles. Like this is probably better because these things, I'll put the link in the description to the ones I got. I tested these out from Amazon because it's about 4 inches. So it's about the same size as my, or actually much smaller, but same diameter as like the ferro rod. So you can have one or two of these in your kit. And there's about an hour plus. They mentioned an hour and a half on these, but I actually tested one, and the last 15 minutes of it is like a little nub that wouldn't be effective. So I would count on an hour of use for the purposes that I'm discussing. And you just, as soon as you get any little flame from your pile of tinder, you just transmit that. Oh, this one's a little bigger. And then you can hold it into your structure. So also what I try to include is some kind of, because in my mind, especially if you have a lighter or something like that, um, or the candles and the ferro rod, you don't need much tinder. What you actually need a lot more of, and what can be a lot more problematic to find, is a decent amount of kindling, like the first size wood that you will use with a once you have an actual flame and not just a spark. Tinder is for sparks and embers. Kindling is for when you actually have a flame. So if you have a lighter, then you can jump right to the kindling. You don't need tinder really. And that's where people mess up most often. And I'm going to be making a video on this because I came up with a cool acronym for building a fire. And I've done videos on this in the past, way in the past, but the primary things that you have to focus on that people mess up the most is simply the size of the first kindling sticks that you have in there. And one of the easiest mnemonics for remembering that is that match flames are designed to light match sticks. So anything from like a small candle flame, the lighter, um, any sort of flame you get, you should never try to light something bigger than, at the absolute largest would be like the size of like a wooden kebab skewer. I think you should be going even smaller than that to like a coffee stirrer. And so I'm probably going to include a bunch of like a little bundle of those like coffee stirrers or wooden sticks of that kind into a kit. Because like I said, that's actually harder to find enough of kindling than it is to find a little bit of tinder. Because you can get a, if you have a candle especially ready to go to light from a single flame, you could even use like half of one of these, pull some lint off your clothes, even mix in a little maybe hair, whatever, you know what I mean? A little bit of fluff from inside a tree. You just don't need that much tinder. Um, Whereas kindling, you need like a handful of it usually, especially if you're in a situation where the larger wood is damp or not particularly great. Because once you get over stuff like pencil sized, you have to have quite a bit if you're really trying to light the big logs. So, but anyways, going back to these, this particular brand that I got were garbage. They did not work very well at all, and they burned incredibly fast. So I might be on the lookout to keep trying that technique of having, because that's one of the main issues of that you would encounter with the candles is it would blow out, and you can make and that's why I came up with my acronym SMOG. Where did I write it down? It stands for the size of your kindling, the most important thing, the moisture, how dry it is, because if they're thin and dry, you will get it lit. That's the most important thing, is having very small and very dry. And then oxygen, or the wind in this case. So not only can you have not have too much wind, but you have to have enough space between the sticks for them to actually breathe, because you can make a really dense pile of sticks that won't really light particularly well. It kind of ends up trying to light an entire log at once. So I have size, moisture, yeah, and oxygen and gusts. So gust is the wind, oxygen is making sure it gets enough. Oh no, the O is not oxygen, it's organization, and gust is the wind. Sorry, I had that wrong. So size, moisture, organization, how you structure, because that makes a huge difference too. It's a little easier to fix if you have really dry wood because you can keep setting things on there, but you can make a poor design. And the two ways that people mess up their fire designs most often is they're either everything too close together, like just jammed up, or too far apart, to where even when you light one of your initial pieces of kindling, the other next stick is too far away. So it just kind of like barely gets there, or it kind of dies out as the fire has to kind of like spread from one stick to the next when they're too far apart. So the easiest ways to do it are some form of simple teepee or some form of like lean-to or log cabin fire. Where you just take a um, bigger size log and lean some things on it in different sizes and different heights to where it can go from, or some kind of trellis thing. So I'll do a video on that later because I like making some fires. But the candles, just in general, candles are something that you should always have a small candle in your, even those tiny ones. Because even if you have just a little one like this, you will get a few lights to where you can light it, hold it, because you only need to hold it under there for a few seconds if you have good kindling. And that prevents you from having to like shuttle your ember and into like on a leaf and hold it under there, or move it or whatever, or cram the tinder into your structure. So it gives you a lot more leeway in how you build the fire ahead of time. Let's see what we go. What we got as far as comments. My neighbors own the feed and country store. Admittedly, they don't own the food line. Correct. My girl actually bought me one of those off Temu. Which ones? The electric lighters? They're pretty good. That would be very cool. How to get a fire going in the desert and what's needed. I have personal experience at failing at that. Well, the desert, the only difference is the good thing is it's all dry. The hard part is finding enough fuel to keep your fire going for a long time. Not hard to find dry small things, twigs and stuff to get the fire started. The biggest problem in desert is the wind, which you have to like either dig a pit or build some rocks around it, and mainly just having enough fuel, larger fuel, to where you could have a fire going long enough to like cook a meal or whatever, especially out here. Gold and silver hasn't moved since 2011, then only seemed to move in the last year. Those casino silver strike tokens never seem to keep up with the price. Yeah, I mean, you can some of those things were inflated because of collector value and then drop back to the melt value. But silver should never be significantly under melt value where you could just take it to the refinery, and it's worth, basically spot. All right, so let's go. You guys think of some questions or topics that you want to cover for the last few minutes of my live stream. And then I'm going to quickly do the Patreon giveaway for this month. Um, or actually for last month's. I don't have the prize for this month's yet, but these are the ones for last month. So we have another one of these mossy oak knives, and we have a weird Work Pro 12-in-1 hammer multi-tool. I don't even know if this thing is. You certainly wouldn't carry it around in your pocket or something. It's too awkward, but it's not necessarily a bad idea for some kind of car kit. But I've never really used it before. But it's brand new, so see if you want it. Want to try it out? Give you some options. So let's see what we got. Let's pull up the spreadsheet. Some kind of drum roll. All right, all right, all right. And we'll go to where's our little number picker? We gotta go to 153. No excluding. All right, let me see if I can share the screen with you guys here. So this will be for the knife first. You guys ready? This is for the knife. $129. Let's see. That is Templar. You got the mossy oak knife. So now we're going to exclude them here. And then now we will be Oop, that was for the knight. Templar. Got the knife. And then we have the Work Pro multi-tool. Let's go back. See what we got. 32. That will be Niz. Niz got the Work Pro multi-tool. So, congratulations to Templar and Niz on your free stuff. And for anyone else who wants to get out on those, just go over to the Patreon link that's in most of my live stream and video descriptions. And you can have free stuff sometimes. So appreciate all the guys who've been on there and supporting me, and hopefully you enjoy the prizes. So you guys got any topics or cool? Good deal, SBQR. Got any last minute topics or questions? Like I said at the beginning, ignore I slept on my hair and then I had to have a chance to fix it. Doesn't just happen, guys. Doesn't just happen. It just takes conscious effort. I'm like the Kardashians over here, got a whole team working on this. But yeah, I should be making a fire video soon. It's nice and cold out. I want to do like an overnight camping video, just go out in the desert, test out a bunch of pieces of gear and make some videos on it and stuff. So World War III going to happen or not? I think so. Seems like hopefully we are avoiding it with Russia, but if you believe Martin Armstrong, who recently was on Greg Hunter's channel, he thinks that we have hopefully slash probably avoided war with Russia, but it is definitely happening with they've decided to focus on China instead, which actually is as much as I at least that makes a little more sense. We don't have any reason to really beef with Russia, whereas there are points of contention with China over like the AI, you know, resources and everything like that. It makes a lot more sense. Taiwan, as stupid as it is to fight over Taiwan, that sort of stuff. But I don't, I'm not saying that we should have any conflict with China because I don't think we should, but China at least does certain things like they abuse the entire globe's like fisheries. They send like, these massive fleets out and just like ransack like fishing boats, like thousands of boats, and just completely ransack other countries' ecosystems and the world's ecosystem water with no regard to like if this is sustainable or not. They're just taking whatever they can as much as they can now, and they'll deal with the consequences later. And it's pretty gross and it's destructive. And they're collapsing a lot of like fisheries and stuff like that. So they're not as very good stewards of resources, but they at least recognize their value, which America doesn't. We tend to focus on the points. As long as you have the big number go up, GDP, then we're doing well, right? So, so I do think we'll continue to see conflict between us and Europe and Russia definitely are making that a thing. Hopefully, we will see the stupidity there. And like I said, if Martin Armstrong is to be believed that the administration is understands that now and is hopefully going to diverge from that or divest themselves from that. But so far, I haven't seen any actual evidence of that. And it seems like everything we're seeing is the Trump administration doing whatever the status quo is from the Israelis or the military industrial complex or whoever's actually controlling that stuff. They seem to be doing exactly what they want and continuing to send resources, not ending the war in Ukraine, which could be done overnight if he really wanted to. Gregory Thompson says, I almost got stranded a few times out in the desert. Would like to learn more about how to deal with things at a basic level on fire roads, not rock crawling things. Yeah, because if you don't have a rock crawler, obviously you can't just go on any random off-road. Mr. Landfill says, be safe, everyone. Got to log out. Appreciate you coming in. I'm about to close this out anyway, but I appreciate you guys watching, and I will be here. What's the next week? Shouldn't have any issues being on next week as well. And I appreciate you guys watching. Congratulations to the Patreon winners.